How are we doing, everyone? How you doing? We got Craig Counsell to talk about. It looked like he was going to be a Met, and now he is a Chicago Cub. There was some drama behind that one today. Twitter was blowing up over that one. I even had a couple of tweets regarding the whole Craig Counsell, drama, and it actually got a lot of traction. So people were all over the Craig Counsell news today. The Mets getting a new manager themselves. The Padres on the verge of a new manager. We'll talk about that. We got some news about Juan Soto, Pete Alonso, MLB trade rumors. Their annual free agent predictions have been released as of a couple hours ago. We'll dive into that. We have finalists for the awards. We got a fun show here tonight. A lot to talk about. But before I do get started, as always, everyone, if you can, the like goal for tonight is 100. If you can hit that like button for me, I will love you forever. Make sure to hit the bell notification. That way you know I go live every single time. We have a lot of off-season content coming out. I just posted my free agent predictions yesterday. And I got to say this, everyone. I got to say this. Wow. That video really blew up. I've had one, I don't like to talk about like views and stuff all that much, but I've had one video on this channel break 100,000 views. And it's very possible that one could too. So I just want to thank all of you. Even if you just clicked on it and got mad at one prediction I made and then clicked out of it, I do want to say thank you for at least clicking on it. It makes me happy because that video is doing really well. And I know I've made quite a few people quite grumpy with some of my predictions, but hey, those are predictions at the end of the day. Predictions are kind of one of those things. You're never going to make everyone happy. I've kind of accepted that, but predictions, they're fun. So again, thank you if you did tune into that video yesterday, but make sure you stay tuned for a whole bunch of other content coming this offseason. This weekend, I have trade predictions as well. Eventually, I'm going to have one free agent for each team. I got one trade for each team this offseason. We got maybe, a couple of historical videos as well, kind of going back in time, looking at offseason moves and whatnot. So, fun offseason coming up. And, of course, all the streams for all the news. But let's get to it here, everyone. And one more thing before I do get started, I'll go over this a little bit more later, but our sponsor is Underdog Fantasy. The link is in the description down below. The promo code is HIDE. Make sure you click on the link and sign up using that code so you get to double your first deposit up to $100. But let's get to it here, everyone. We got a lot to talk about. And we got to talk about the Craig Counsell news because this is obviously the big story of the day. And who saw this one coming? It looked like he was on the verge of going to the Mets. I will say this, though. There have been reports, many reports in the past, obviously, where it felt like it was a slam dunk. Something was going to happen. But there was something about Craig Counsell and the Mets. Even though David Stearns was there, there's still like something that was keeping me hesitant on the move getting done. I thought it could have gotten done, but there was just something about it I just wasn't quite sure of. They definitely made a strong push for him, and so it looked like he was on the verge of going there. And then all of a sudden, the Cubs came out of nowhere with just a massive offer, and that was all it took. But I think Craig Counsell, I feel like this move would have gotten done sooner, to be completely honest with you. When I think of Craig Counsell, sure, David Stearns is there in Queens, but there's just the way kind of Craig Counsell is, the way he carries himself. He seems to be a bit more on the quieter side. There was always just something with Craig Counsell and the Mets that didn't fully line up for me. Personally, just looking at it from like a personality point of view, I think he definitely saw a challenge there, and obviously there was the familiarity with David Stearns, but again, something was holding me back just a little bit. So I'm not surprised to see him go to another team, but there was some drama with this today because when this all started happening, right, the report coming out from Ken Rosenthal was that he was going to be going to a team that already had a manager And everyone was on high alert at that point. Everyone's like, oh my God, like who is the team? Because last time I checked, my team has a manager. I was even thinking, my God, is Alex Cora going to be on the way out? I mean, I thought it was hilarious. I was seeing some different tweets out there. They were just killing me. Like, they were so funny because you never see a situation like that where like a report comes out where so-and-so is going to go to a team that already has a manager. And it's like, you never see that kind of a report. I thought the reactions were pretty hilarious today all over Twitter. It was just great drama. I loved it. This is what the off season's all about, everyone. So, but everyone was speculating what was going to happen here. What team is he going to go to? Because people started thinking, well, could he go to the Astros? And then this story came out. Everyone's like, well, the Astros don't have a manager, so it's not going to be the Astros. So people were wondering, Blue Jays fans are starting to speculate, even though they had already said that, their manager was going to be coming back for next year. People started speculating, could Dave Roberts finally be on his way out from the Dodgers organization? I didn't see that happening. So, there was a lot of speculation out there. People were thinking, I saw someone maybe even think the Mariners. I'm going to be honest with you. I actually thought for a split second before the news came out that it could have been the Marlins, right? Because you got the Marlins with Skip Shoemaker, and there had been connections with the Padres over the last couple of weeks. There was a report that the Padres had asked to interview him. So I thought for a second, well, the Marlins, they have Skip Shoemaker, so maybe Skip Shoemaker could be on his way to the Padres. And I thought maybe Craig Counsell could have been the new manager for the Marlins because they just got their new president of baseball operations from the Rays, analytical department, or a very highly analytical department over there. And I'm thinking, all right, Craig Counsell, right? He was just with David Stearns. Could this be, like a seamless transition for him? Used to be with the Marlins, right? The hero, scoring the winning run for the 1997 Marlins, obviously. So, I kind of thought the Marlins, I thought it was them for a second. And then it came out with the Cubs. And there's a lot to dig into here. The biggest contract ever, right, for a manager. This now tops Joe Torre's annual salary is $7.5 million. Craig Counsell getting $8 million per season, which is actually a massive bump in pay. And I think that's really good, right? When you look at it from the salaries for managers in the future, right? You've been seeing college coaches out there getting big salaries. And now you see someone like Craig Counsell, where compared to Joe Torre is obviously way more accomplished. Craig Counsell here has not won anything, right? But he has had success over with the Brewers. However, he hasn't won anything. But to see a manager like Counsell, who has not won anything, gets a massive contract. When I say massive for a manager, but when you get a big contract like this, now this sets the precedent for future managers, right? Despite, what you have done in the major leagues. So I think this is great for managers in the future. It kind of puts that direction, or it puts the direction of manager pay in a much better direction in the future. He also, compared to Terry Francona, $4.5 million per season for Terry Francona prior, and he just absolutely blew that out of the water, right? So, hey, good for him for getting this kind of money. I mean, this is huge. A lot of people were thinking, why is Craig Counsell getting this much money? Again, he hasn't won anything. But I think Craig Counsell, he's one of these guys, players like playing for him, right? And you saw a lot of Brewers reactions out there, like Corbin Burns, Brandon Woodruff. They reacted thinking, wow, what the heck just happened, right? Players love Craig Counsell, right? And he gets a lot out of him. With the Brewers, he got a lot out of them, right? Especially out of the pitching staff, right? Sure, they fell short in the playoffs this year, but Craig Counsell was a guy, seemed to make a lot of right moves, right? So I think in the end, for the Cubs, I think they're getting themselves a really solid guy here, but he will be replacing David Ross. And this is, ties into the drama here with David Ross. Now, don't get me wrong, people in Chicago, Cubs fans out there, they have been a little, I would say 50-50 on David Ross. You've seen a lot of people out there show their support for David Ross over the years. They feel like he's a guy that, the players love to play for. But then there's also the fact that he hasn't really pushed the right buttons at times. I've seen Cubs fans complain a lot about some of the moves David Ross has made in the past, whether it comes to the lineup or handling the bullpen, right? In the end, the Cubs fell short, 83-79 this year. They were right there for a playoff spot, and they just completely fell short. So, in Major League Baseball, it is a results-oriented business at the end of the day. And David Ross didn't get it done, right? He had been there for a few seasons, and he just didn't get it done. This is very, very similar to the Rick Renteria situation when they had him for a couple of years, and he was in the middle of his contract, and he got dismissed for Joe Madden. And look what happened after that. Joe Madden and the Cubs end up going on to win a World Series. So the Cubs, they made the pivot here. I wonder how long this was on their radar. Right? To me, if he's getting this kind of money, this tells me the Cubs have had this idea for a while, right? At least for over a month. I mean, I would think. Who knows? Maybe even farther back, right? Maybe this has been something on the Cubs front office mind. That's what I think personally. I think this, you got to think too. Everyone knew Craig Counsell was going to be coming up on his contract here. I bet a lot of teams were even thinking about giving him a call, but the fact that he got this much money tells me maybe the Cubs were really planning on this for a long time. I think they wanted to probably see how the regular season shaped up, and in the end, they didn't make the playoffs, so now they have urgency. And with this kind of a move, this tells me that the Cubs, they're going to be out there wheeling and dealing. They're going to go out there. They're going to go get themselves a top free agent, maybe even 2. Who knows? Maybe even 3. I expect the Cubs now, the fact that they have a high caliber, a high tier manager in Craig Counsell, I mean, you can't stop right there, right? You got to go out and make some moves now. Now that you have a guy like Craig Counsell that players respect, right? And I think that's going to help them in their free agent pursuit as well. I think the Cubs knew, hey, players like this guy, right? He has a good reputation around the league. Let's bring this guy in because we want to be aggressive this offseason. We want to throw some money around. Who knows? Maybe this could even help entice Ohtani to maybe come to Chicago. I don't know. But I do think the Cubs, this was a very high urgency kind of a move, right? Tie in the results from David Ross and this offseason. I think it just kind of was the perfect recipe to make this kind of a move. And Jon Heyman did say that it had more to do with Craig Counsell than David Ross. So I think David Ross is respected. I don't think David Ross necessarily did a bad job. I just think, he just kind of fell short. I think David Ross is going to have other opportunities down the road. Hey, I would not mind at all if David Ross comes to Boston in some kind of a role. I wouldn't mind that at all. So, but, I agree with Jon Heyman, with the reports that he has said that other people around the league were saying, this was more about Craig Counsell than it was about David Ross. So Counsell is very, very respected across Major League Baseball. So, in the end, I think this is a great move for the Cubs. It kind of just, to me, really sets the tone for where they want to go. They want to have a big offseason, and they want to start winning, right? And to me, Craig Counsell, he's really showed what he can do as a manager. And there's even a little bit more to this as well. We got some reactions coming from Milwaukee. So according to Adam McCalvey, let me actually just double check what he actually does. He is the Brewers beat writer for MLB.com. So he actually had some comments here from Brewers owner Mark Atancio. I'm sorry if I'm pronouncing that wrong. But he said here today on a Zoom call, we're all here today. He was talking with the players today. We're all here today because we lost Craig. But I've reflected on this. Craig has lost us, and he's lost our community. It's a really special place to be. Very interesting comments there, right? Because in the end, a lot of Brewers fans were pretty hurt by this, right? In the end, though, I think this is kind of weird for the owner of the Brewers here to come out and say, Craig lost us. Listen, I get it. The Brewers are a small market team. But, I mean, come on. Like, that's just weird. It just kind of, it rubs me the wrong way a little bit. Like, I understand what he's saying. I get it, But you didn't pay him. You didn't give him the money. At the end of the day, the Cubs came in and they just blew everyone out of the water. I mean, they blew the Mets out of the water. We'll talk about the Mets here in a second. Well, I wouldn't say they blew them out of the water, but they beat the Mets offer, right? The Mets are offering $7 million per season. And the Cubs came in and said, hey, even executives around the league are thinking, what the heck? The Cubs are crazy, right? There's actually been some quotes out there from executives around the league saying the Cubs are nuts. They're giving $8 million a year for Craig Counsell, who hasn't even really done anything, right? So, but I think this is, I don't know. These comments to me, I think personally, I don't know. I think it just sounds a little whiny personally, but I understand though, it is a small market team. They're all about community there. It's like a family over in Milwaukee. So I understand, right? And he kind of, to me, I feel like these comments, this was almost sort of a way for the Brewers owner to kind of just not receive as much backlash from the fans. I think he tried to actually shift the blame onto Counsell, right? Because I think people were going to come after him. So I think this was a bit of a defense mechanism in a way. I don't know. I see what he's saying, but I'm not sure if I fully agree, right? I'm not sure if I fully agree with the comments. They seem a little, I don't know. They just don't just feel right to me personally. And he actually, when he first found out, speaking to Counsell, that he was going to the Cubs, when he first told me, I said, are you messing with me? I mean, that's actually pretty hilarious, honestly. I think that's really funny. But he went on to say as well, he talked with the players and what they would like to see in the next Brewers manager. We're going to look for a manager who can continue to have a terrific clubhouse culture and help us keep winning and hopefully get over the hump in the playoffs. He also said that he's done a fair amount of background work on managerial candidates, or Matt Arnold said this, it's being reported with Matt Arnold, has done a fair amount of background work on managerial candidates in the event that this day came. So they were prepared for it. I think they were fully expecting that he was going to eventually come back. And in the end, the Cubs said, nah, we want Mr. Craig Counsell in our dugout. So in the end, I think it's a great move for the Cubs. The Brewers, it'll be interesting to see what route they go. Do they stay in-house? Do they go out there? Maybe Buck Showalter. Could you go with a veteran guy like him, maybe? I don't know. However, there was also a little something here from John Morosi with the Cubs. Says here, Justin Turner and the Cubs are a potential match in free agency. Craig Counsell and the Brewers made a strong push to sign Turner after the 2020 season. Cubs are looking for offense, especially with Bellinger and Candelario now free agents. Now, I will say this. When I was doing my free agent predictions, I'm going to be completely honest with you. When I thought Justin Turner, for some reason, Justin Turner in a Cubs jersey just came to mind. It just looks right. I just see it. I'm looking in my potato-shaped crystal ball of a brain, and I just saw Justin Turner in a Cubs jersey. It just looks right. It almost puts a smile on my face, if that makes sense. I love Justin Turner with the Red Sox, but there's just something about Turner in a Cubs uniform that just sounds right to me. I don't know why. I can't really even explain it, but Turner would be a fit here. You do got Tauchman out in center field. You could just put Morel out there, and then, Tauchman, can kind of rotate in and out. He could be that, be that piece off the bench that's going to be really good for you. It would just be a solid bench piece, in my opinion. Morel can be the center fielder, and then you can have Turner as your full-time DH, and then Tauchman can get lefty at-bats at the DH spot, come in for Morel as well. So, Tauchman would still have a role on this team, a heavy role, I think. But I think Turner could really fit this team, and he can also play third as well. He could play some seconds. So, I think Turner could be a really good fit for the Chicago Cubs. So he's not one of the biggest free agents out there, but hey, I would look out for Justin Turner as a possible match with the Cubs. So we'll have to wait and see. But let's shift over to our next story. Let's shift over here. So just taking a look, making sure we got no super chats in here. I'm seeing a lot of you talking in the chat. Oh, is it Talkman? I'm sorry. I always say Tauchman. I don't know why I'm saying that. Jesse Winker to the Cubs. Hurricane Truth. I completely forgot about Jesse Winker, to be completely honest with you. So, anyway, let's move on here. We got the Mets as well. Let's talk the Mets, and they have a new manager themselves. They got Carlos Mendoza. All right. The Mets, like I said, they were in the running for Craig Counsell. It looked like it was going to happen with Craig Counsell at one point. It just felt like it was inevitable, right? It felt like he was going to be the next manager of the New York Mets. So, taking a look here. Why is my screen not sharing? Okay, there we go. So, because Counsell is now a Chicago Cub, they have now shifted their focus to Carlos Mendoza, all right, as their next manager. So, Mendoza's an interesting one. I could see people, when they saw this, it felt underwhelming, right? Because the prize was Craig Counsell. That was in everyone's mind, basically, at that point. Everyone had already penciled in Craig Counsell as the new Mets manager. That didn't happen. So I think Carlos Mendoza, by default, is going to feel a bit underwhelming, but from most people around Major League Baseball, according, everything that I've read, everything that I've listened to, comments from players and different coaches and, whatever, front office executives, he seems to be a very, very respected guy throughout Major League Baseball. He was the Yankees bench coach. That was his most recent job. He was their infield coach prior. He was the single-A manager for the Yankees at one point. He's a very hands-on kind of a manager, and that's why he does draw a lot of respect, especially from players. So, to me, I think Carlos Mendoza seems like he could be one of these under-the-radar kind of a guy, kind of guys that could end up being pretty good as a manager. I think it's good because he's also younger as well. He's in his 40s, so I think he could connect with these players on the Mets. I think Buck Showalter, when he came into the Mets, like the culture was set that they were going to win, right? And you saw what the Mets did. They won 100 games. They ended up losing in the playoffs a couple of years ago. But then it felt like last year things just didn't feel right. I could see Carlos Mendoza being a guy that connects better than, Showalter did this past year. I think when Showalter came in initially, I think it felt like the right move at the right time, but then that faded, right? And now I feel like someone like Mendoza, who is a hands-on guy, he's been, throughout organizations, in his career for a while. He's, been in multiple organizations, and he is a younger guy that I think could connect with the players a little bit more. He's been in New York now, so he has that experience. So there's a lot of little things that I think could make this a good hire for the New York Mets. But I think it could be really good for the young guys, right? He's a hands-on guy. You got Beatty, you got Vientos, you got Mauricio there. You got a lot of younger guys coming up in the Mets system. And I think Mendoza could end up being a solid fit overall. And remember, with the Yankees, right? They use a lot of analytics over there. They're trying to, really, push all of the analytics there. Have they done a great job with it? Maybe in some ways, but a lot of ways, no. But he is coming from an organization that really uses the analytics. So it doesn't surprise me that David Stearns quickly pivoted to Carlos Mendoza. Listen, with David Stearns, the one thing that I saw constant is that if David Stearns hired him and he pivoted that quick to him, you should trust him, right? If you think of David Stearns during his time with the Brewers, he made a lot of right moves, right? There wasn't a lot of wrong moves that David Stearns made. Sure, everyone is going to have their fair share of wrong moves, right? Not pushing the right buttons. But with David Stearns, there wasn't a whole lot of that with the Brewers. So I think you should trust the move, right? David Stearns, he's obviously had a lot of success. So if he feels like Carlos Mendoza is the right guy, I think you got to trust him. See how it goes. It seems for the most part pretty positive across Metland. Fans, I think we're a bit underwhelmed. But I think, once they started reading about him a little bit more, hearing all these different things, it seemed like Mets fans started to warm up to the idea a little bit. So we'll have to wait and see how this goes. Who knows? Could he end up being another one of these guys that's only there for a couple of years? The Mets have been doing that now for the last few years. So could Mendoza end up being another one of these guys that, he's on his way out in a couple of years? We'll have to see. But I think Mets fans definitely give him a chance. So, hey, congrats to the Mets. Congrats to the Cubs. Congrats to Counsell, Mendoza. Hey, landing these kind of jobs. These are big jobs. So, hey, congratulations to them. So, the Padres. The Padres need a manager as well. And when it comes to the Padres, they, the Padres, they are just kind of a mess, right? It feels like they're a mess right now. They're getting loans to help them pay, people on the payroll, and it just feels like everything is in disarray. Juan Soto's in the trade rumors. It just feels like what the heck is going on in San Diego right now. But they do need a manager at the end of the day, and reports are that they are down to 3 finalists for the manager job. The 3 finalists, you got Mike Shildt. He was the former manager for the St. Louis Cardinals. He's now a senior advisor for the San Diego Padres in a front office role. Then there's Ryan Flaherty. He is the bench coach as of right now. And then there's the Angels infield coach, Benji Gil. Personally, out of these 3 guys, I do think it's going to come down to Shildt and Flaherty. I wonder if it ends up being Flaherty. Flaherty, he's already been there on the bench. He's a younger guy. Some of these players, I think, could relate to him a little bit more than someone like Mike Shildt, right? You just had Bob Melvin. Bob Melvin had more success as a manager, but Mike Shildt feels almost like a similar personality almost. You know what I mean? Like around, I don't know the exact ages of Melvin and Shildt, but it seems like to me they're maybe around the same age. I don't know their ages exactly, but I do know with Ryan Flaherty, he is younger, and I feel like that could be a better fit with the players that they have, right? Being a former player as well. So my pick is going to be Flaherty. It just, I don't know, to me, it feels like he is that next guy. But I wouldn't be surprised with Shildt either. So, but my pick would be Flaherty. I think the Padres need a guy like that right now. And it's not like Flaherty is like, yeah, he's going to be a first-time manager if it does end up happening, but he's been with this team, right? So I feel like with the Padres, it might help for them to go with someone that the players are familiar with, right? Shilt's been there as a senior advisor, but Flaherty is a guy that's been in the dugout, right? So I could definitely see them making that kind of a smooth transition, and we'll have to see. Jim is here, everyone. Jim is here. Ballcap Sports is here. Preller is going to bring Preller. Sorry, I feel like I'm tired. I feel like I'm just my words are not coming out right. I'm dead. I had a long day at work today. Preller is going to bring in a yes man. Yep. Hey, it's all about AJ Preller in San Diego. It's all about AJ Preller. Whatever AJ Preller says goes, right? Ownership loves him. So at the end of the day, Preller, he's going to have the say at the end of the day. So I could absolutely see, yes, I agree. Someone like a yes man kind of a guy. But I think Flaherty is that kind of a guy, honestly. Flaherty seems like a guy that gets along well with the front office. So I could definitely see that. It feels like that's what a lot of teams are doing now, right? It's not just the manager making the calls. It's a collaborative approach, right? So, yeah, Ryan Flaherty, I could see being the guy. So, we'll have to wait and see what happens there. We got the Brewers needing a manager. The Padres need a manager. Who else is going to need a manager? It feels like there's going to be someone at some point, or some team at some point that's going to need a manager. But let's shift away from the managers. Let's get away from that. I think we're all bored of all the manager talk. We got some rumors, everyone. We got some rumors. I always love the rumors. And we got some juicy ones. And we got a little bit of Juan Soto, a little bit of Pete Alonso in the rumor mill. I love it. I love the rumor mill. It's just great. I love this. Here we go. Pete Alonso, Juan Soto, 50-50 chance to get traded this winter. And that's kind of how I have honestly felt. Like, I could see a reason to keep Soto for the Padres, right? But I could also see the reason to trade him too, personally, right? And I saw a report here today as well that the Padres, AJ Preller, they want to hang on to Juan Soto until the trade deadline, right? See how they do, see how the regular season goes, maybe see if they can somehow, get him to talk an extension. But I think with Soto, with Preller, I think honestly, those comments to me, it feels like Preller is trying to keep as much leverage as he can, right? I feel that way, right? To me, of course, I see the advantage of keeping Soto. I do, right? Because at the end of the day, Soto, hey, he makes your team better. He's a great player, right? He's going to be putting up solid numbers every single year. He'll have that slow start, and then he'll eventually finish off with a really good season. So I see the advantage of keeping Soto. But if he's not going to sign an extension, then yeah, I could see why you should trade Soto now before you get absolutely nothing for him. But again, Soto helps you win, or at least he puts you in a better position, right? Unless the Padres maybe can find a trade that can still give them some pieces to try and help them win. So I think it could come down to who are the players that they get in return, right? I would imagine they would probably want a mix, right? Major league ready guys, maybe at least like one bat or one pitcher already at the major league level, and then fill it out with, some higher level prospects. Now, with Juan Soto, you are not going to be getting the package that the Nationals got. That is completely done. That is not happening. Why? Because when he was traded to the Padres at the time, he still had a couple of years of control left. He wasn't making as much in arbitration at the time. Now it's expected that he's going to be getting over $30 million for arbitration this year. So when you combine all of that with obviously the player that he is, right? He had a massive value a couple of years ago, and that's why the Nationals got a huge package. That is not going to be the case this time around. Let's go to baseballtradevalues.com. And no, I'm not trading Juan Soto for Pete Alonso. I'm just putting their numbers here just for visual sakes. But for Juan Soto, and also, look how great Baseball Trade Values is with the update. I'm just saying. I'm not going to give an infomercial here. Go check out Baseball Trade Values, the new update that they have. It's a new site. Seriously, it's awesome. I've been playing around with it. It's so much quicker as well. I love it. Anyway, Juan Soto, if we look at his median value, $23 million, right? That's the median value. Everyone likes to focus on that middle number, right? However, there's a range, okay? It's, people like to focus on that. And also remember this, it's not valuing the player. It's valuing everything that goes into a player's value. Performance is only a part of it. Then you got to factor the contract. You got to factor injury history, future projections. There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes in, years of control, right? There's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into valuing the trade value. Again, it's not just about the player's performance. You have to look at the whole package. And I feel like that is a lot of people like to hate on this site because I think that's the only thing they're thinking about. They're only thinking of the player, right? There's a lot more to it. There's economics to it, right? So this is the median value here. However, they have a range. They say they could go as low as 18 million. I don't see that with Juan Soto. And you can go as high as 27.5 million. Honestly, with Juan Soto, I wouldn't be surprised if they did trade him and you got a package that's worth over $30 million. It is Juan Soto at the end of the day. So I could definitely see that. I think at the end of the day, when it comes to Soto, again, I know it's kind of a boring answer, but it is 50-50. I think they could hang on to him, but I think they could trade him as well. It depends on how motivated a team is going to be, right? Will the Yankees be seriously motivated? A lot of people wanting the Yankees to go sign Cody Bellinger. Could they maybe just go after Juan Soto here, right? Maybe go sign, some lower tier players in free agency and then go make a move for Juan Soto? Offer him $450 million for the next 11 years or whatever the heck it's going to be. At the end of the day, it is the Yankees. It's the Yankees. I think if Juan Soto got traded to the Yankees, I think he tells Scott Boras, hey, it's the Yankees, right? It's the New York freaking Yankees. It's pinstripes, right? I could absolutely see Juan Soto wanting to spend the rest of his career in pinstripes. I mean, who wouldn't? I mean, listen, say what you will about the Yankees in the last couple of years, but it is the Yankees at the end of the day. So I could see this. If he got traded to the Yankees, I could see him working out an extension with them, right? Scott Boras likes to take his clients to free agency, but at the end of the day, the agent works for the player, right? And if the player says, I want to sign an extension with this team, you got to listen, right? Everyone likes to just jump to Boras, he always takes his players to free agency. At the end of the day, if Soto if he gets traded somewhere and he wants to stay there for the long term, I could see it, right? It's very possible. So, Pete Alonso. Oh, and actually, one more thing. I actually do want to get into a couple of details about Soto. Morosi, he commented on this today, saying it's not terribly likely the Padres would be able to re-sign Soto due to the payroll situation, right? Well, they're getting loans out for everyone, so, I could see that. And also, it's looking like AJ Preller is going to be doing some talking here at the GM meetings, trying to figure out what the value is for Juan Soto. I mean, listen, AJ Preller, are you out there? Are you listening? Hey, Baseball Trade Values has it covered for you. AJ Preller, I mean, listen. Hey, AJ Preller, you've had a lot of trades approved by Baseball Trade Values. I don't know what you're doing. You're wasting your time asking all these people. It's right there for you. It's right there for you. Anyway, but it's going to be interesting to see what ends up happening here. Again, I am 50-50. So I agree that there is a 50-50 chance. But I hope he gets traded, because that is just good content for myself, for Ballcap Sports, right? Jim always talking the rumors and everything over there as well. All the content creators, we want Juan Soto to get traded, right? It's great content. You all love the juicy stuff. You want Juan Soto to get traded. I don't want him to stay at Padres. I don't know. There's something about him and the Padres. It just, ever since I saw him in a Padres uniform, it just doesn't look right to me. I've said that in the past. He looks good. I hate to say it, but Juan Soto looks good in a Yankee uniform. There's just something that just looks right with it. I don't know. Is that just me? That's probably just me. Anyway, Pete Alonso. There's actually something in here about Pete Alonso as well. Morosi spoke on the trade rumors surrounding Alonso, who recently switched to Boras as well. Mets president of baseball operations David Stern said in his introductory press conference that he expects Alonso to be the team's first baseman on opening day next season. Leverage, everyone. Leverage. It's all about leverage, right? That is the correct thing to say. If you want Pete Alonso, or if you want to get as much out of him as you can, that's what you say, right? Yep, he's going to be our guy for next year. Yep. You know how many times, these guys have said these kind of comments? and then they end up getting traded like literally like a day later. I mean, come on. So to me, I think there's actually more of a 50-50 chance Alonso gets traded, right? Because his name was coming up at the trade deadline. Juan Soto's was too, but Alonso looked a bit more serious at one point. It looked like we had a trade at one point. It looked like he was going to the Cubs or the Brewers at one point. So I personally think Pete Alonso will get traded unless they work out an extension. I could see that as well. But the Mets got a lot of position players coming up. You know, I could see them trading Alonso. I really could. You know, with Pete Alonso, sure, 46 home runs last year. But goodness gracious, that batting average, 217, the 318 on base. Man, I would love for those to come up a little bit. So I wonder if the Mets, they take advantage of his value while they still can. Because who knows? What if Pete Alonso, that low batting average that we just saw, the low on base? Sure, we know the guy can absolutely pummel the ball. But could we maybe even see a regression in these numbers? You know, to me, when I see a low batting average, low on base, that kind of worries me for the future a little bit, right? Because I think those on-base skills, they really show what a player can be in the long run. You know, I'm not saying Pete Alonso is going to all of a sudden lose his power stroke, but, you know, I could see maybe a slight dip. So I wonder if David Stern says, hey, we need to strike while the iron is hot. Pete Alonso is Pete Alonso. Let's trade him and let's get something back for him. For Pete Alonso on baseball trade values, his median value is $9.5 million. I think you could get more for that personally. It is Pete Alonso at the end of the day. He's got the name. They have him going up to 11. I could see him maybe getting up to around 15, right? Especially if, you know, teams are competing for him. You know, could a team like the Cubs maybe go for him, right? I could personally see something like that. You know, if we're looking at some of these teams out here that could use a first baseman, you use some offense as well, right? So if we're looking at first base, if we're looking at WRC plus, right? I mean, you got some teams. You know, let's say, actually, if you lose Ohtani, could the Angels maybe pull off a deal? Something like that, you know? Let's say the Padres end up trading Juan Soto. Could they pivot to someone like Pete Alonso? Maybe. I don't know. Could the Marlins maybe make a deal? I know that's in division. Probably not. But there's some teams, right? Maybe the Mariners, they could use another bat there. Maybe Pete Alonso would be a nice power bat for them. You know? I definitely think there are some teams out there that could use him, right? Especially, you know, obviously we've had the universal DH now for a while, so there's going to be spots for Pete Alonso. So we'll have to wait and see how this ends up going. So stay tuned for the Juan Soto, Pete Alonso rumors. Everyone, speaking of rumors, we got the annual MLB trade rumors predictions, right? It feels like an event when they put these out. You know, honestly, I kind of want to go back to how their predictions did last year. Let me actually go to last year's predictions. Let's see. Because they put these out every single year. Let me actually see here. 22, 23. Here we go. So let's go to last year's predictions. Right? Let me close out some of these tabs as well. You know, everyone, I open up so many tabs all the time. Why do I do this to myself? Here we go. So, again, their annual predictions have been released. I wish they maybe predicted a little bit more for the Red Sox. Gosh, I really hope the Red Sox do something this offseason. But one of them did pick Blake Snell to go to the Red Sox. But, again, it feels like an event every time they do this, right? Everyone's always wondering, you know, because MLB Trade Rumors, they're a great site. They put out just phenomenal work, right? They're just so up to date with everything out there. It's phenomenal what they do. So I can understand why they, you know, these predictions every single year get a lot of attention. So taking a look at last year, they all got Aaron Judge right. So they have a group of guys that make the predictions, right? They were a little short on the contract, but they were pretty much right in line. They all said the Yankees, right? Carlos Correa. Steve got the Giants right at one point. I mean, hey, a couple of guys said the Giants, and he was a Giant at one point. And then the other guy said the Twins, so they were right on that. You got most of them, a couple here saying the Phillies for Trey Turner. That was right. None of them got Bogarts right. Swanson, you had 3 guys say the Cubs, right? So that worked out, right? Rodon, nothing on Rodon. But they have hit, right? A couple of guys said the Rangers for DeGrom. Verlander, no one actually said the Mets. I mean, that was pretty surprising, right? Nimmo, 2 guys said he was going to go back to the Mets. Wilson Contreras, there was nothing for the Cardinals. Kadai Senga, no one said the Mets, right? So they have hit, right? They have definitely made some correct calls. So kind of just going through this real quick. I'm not going to spend a long time on this personally. Just going to kind of go through. When we look at last year's, they got a lot of guys right that were near the top, right? So they're all picking the Dodgers for Ohtani. I mean, I think that's the consensus, honestly. The Dodgers just feel inevitable for Shohei Ohtani. They just check off so many boxes. So I agree with them. I agree. Bellinger, 2 for the Giants, 1 for the Yankees. I did pick Bellinger for the Giants. I made my predictions before they posted theirs, so don't think that I copied, right? So yeah, I do think he ends up going to the Giants, the Yankees, or the Cubs personally. I think he could just go back, right? Looking at Yamamoto, 2 for the Yankees, 1 for the Giants. I mean, hey, the Yankees rotation would look great with Yamamoto in it. All right. The Giants, I don't know if the Giants do it, because the Giants, they don't tend to spend money on pitching. Could this be different? Blake Snell was pretty split. 1 for the Dodgers, 1 for the Red Sox, 1 for the Phillies. I picked the Cubs personally for Blake Snell. I'm probably wrong, but I could see the Dodgers. I think that'd be a pretty fun fit staying in that division. The Red Sox, I would not mind Blake Snell at all. The Phillies, if they end up losing Aaron Nola, could they just pivot to Blake Snell? I think it's possible. And then Nola, they all said the Cardinals. That's who I went with. Honestly, I think he's a Cardinal personally. Montgomery, very split on Montgomery. 1 for the Giants, 1 for the Mets. I don't see him going to the Mets. And then Tim with the Rangers. I think out of all these teams, I think he ends up going back to the Rangers out of all 3 of these picks. I had him going to the Braves. However, my pick now with Montgomery going to the Braves, Charlie Morton today, the club option has been exercised. So I thought, okay, let's just not exercise that club option for Charlie Morton. Go use that money for someone like Jordan Montgomery. And the Braves, they had not a care in the world, what I thought. So, maybe, who knows? Maybe they could still go sign Montgomery. He doesn't have a qualifying offer. So I could see the Braves maybe still being attracted to that. That'd be a really good rotation. I mean, my goodness. You would have Spencer Strider, Max Fried, Jordan Montgomery, and Charlie Morton. I mean, that's a deep rotation right there. So I wouldn't count the Braves out. Matt Chapman, Cubs, Phillies, and the Giants. I picked the Giants personally. I think the Cubs could work. Yeah, I mean, sure, the Cubs are a fit. I don't know about the Phillies. The Phillies, you'd have to do something there with Alec Boehm. Could maybe the Phillies trade Alec Boehm, and then you could maybe get some pitching for him if they did lose Nola? I could maybe see something like that. They all said the Rangers for Josh Hader. I agree. Sonny Gray, they're all split. The Braves, the Dodgers, the Tigers. That's an interesting one. Could the Tigers, with Eduardo Rodriguez not opting in, could the Tigers pivot to Sonny Gray, right? Just in that division this past year. I think that's an intriguing one. I could maybe see something like that. Listen, the Tigers, they're really big on pitching development. I could see them being enamored with Sonny Gray, personally. And they have money to spend. The Dodgers are fun. I think the Braves are a fun fit, but will they want to give up that compensation, right, for the qualifying offer being offered to them? And then I'll go to just a couple more here. I won't spend too much time. Shota Imanaga, 2 for the Cubs, 1 for the Angels. That's interesting. Eduardo Rodriguez. Hey, 1 for the Red Sox. I wouldn't mind a reunion with Eduardo Rodriguez. I would have loved for him to come back, right, when he was a free agent. I was kind of sad when he ended up going to the Tigers. 1 said the Reds. I could maybe see the Reds splurging, but just off of recent history, I don't know. Until the Reds actually do it, I'm not going to see them spending money. You got the White Sox. I could see the White Sox. They really could use someone. So if they could throw some money at Eduardo Rodriguez, I could see that. The White Sox, I think, are going to have to overpay just because of how bad they did this past season. Teoscar Hernandez, 1 for the White Sox, 2 for the Angels. Teoscar Hernandez kind of feels like an Angel, doesn't he? I just have him going back to the Mariners, but I don't know. I could see the Angels. The White Sox, too. I think that could make some sense. Candelario, 1 for the Cubs, 1 for the Royals, and 1 for the Blue Jays. I said the Blue Jays. I'll do a couple more. Lourdes Gurriel Jr., Mariners, Yankees, Royals. Interesting. And then Jung-Hoo Lee. This is a fun one. 2 for the Padres, 1 for the Blue Jays. That's interesting. All right. So go check it out. I mean, we got a lot here that you can dive into. I mean, I could sit here and go through all of it, but it would take me probably like another hour or so. But yeah, I think for some of these top guys, I think they're all, within range of, getting these top guys right. But they do have Ohtani going to the Dodgers. That's a consensus pick across the board. And I agree. I think he does end up going to the Dodgers. So, taking a look here. And actually, you know what? Let me get to some super chats before I get to the last segment of the show. Let's see here. Did I miss any earlier on? No, I got 3 super chats here. I'm going to get to them here. Stathy Politis, $2 super chat. Could definitely see a trade with the Mariners for Gilbert. Yeah, I think Logan Gilbert's an interesting trade candidate. Look out for that, right? He is going to cost a lot. But if that could land them a big bat, I think it's possible. All right, the Mariners, they have a lot of pitching there. You could get a lot for Logan Gilbert. I wonder. The next one, Jimmy Productions, $4.99. Robbie, are there players you left off your MLB free agent predictions? And could you see the Nationals going after some lower cost starting pitchers? Yeah, the Nationals could use some pitching. And yeah, I did my top 40. I was already pushing it with 40, right? That ended up being like a 20-minute video. I kind of wanted to keep it to 25, but I was like, I don't know. There's some other guys I want to talk about. So I just, I was like, let's do 40. Let's do 40. So, but yeah, there's definitely some guys on there that I did not cover, right? But for the Nationals, right, I had Harrison Bader going to the Nationals. I'll probably get that wrong. But they could use some pitching, right? Their pitching is pretty bad. But I think more like lower key kind of guys. When I think lower key, like the top lower key guy to me is Kyle Gibson. I could maybe see that, right? So a veteran guy that can kind of give them some stability, right? And then one more for Jimmy Productions. Thank you, Jimmy. 2025 is when the Nationals go after a big name starting pitcher when they went after Max Scherzer. I do think the Nationals in the next couple of years will make some moves, right? Don't think they're quite there yet. I think it's very, very possible after next year. Let's see how they do this year. I think they could have a pretty decent season this year. Very similar to, maybe what the Tigers did this year, right? Kind of, the Tigers were under 500, but they made some strides. I could see the Nationals maybe doing something like that. So they had a big win improvement last year. So don't think they're quite there to spend some money, but they got money, right? They got some bucks they can spend. So yeah, I agree. I think they could spend some money. So, Jim, the Nationals have a surprise move in them this offseason. Listen, Jim, I remember going back, I don't remember what stream exactly. I think it was a power ranking stream. I did say on one of them, I'm like, listen, don't be surprised if the Nationals do something this offseason, right? Do I expect them to go after one of these big guys? No, I don't see that. But now that I think about it, I'm thinking back to one of the power ranking streams. And I said, wouldn't it be hilarious if they went out there and signed like Blake Snell and, just signed like someone long-term, right? Like, I don't think it happens, but if it did, would I be surprised? Like, yeah, I would be surprised, but I would also understand why maybe they would want to make a move. I don't think they do, but I could maybe see them thinking about it at least. But I will stick with that they wait until next offseason. But hey, a lot of these teams now with the younger talent that they have, a lot of teams now with these kind of, you got Dylan Cruz coming up eventually, right? You got Woods coming up eventually. You got young talent there. Maybe the Nationals say, hey, you know what? We're going for it. We got a good core in place. Let's go after a couple of guys. I could see the Nationals maybe being busy. All right? Could you imagine, Jim, Yamamoto? Good grief. Could you imagine that? Right? I hope something crazy like that happens. Really. Friggin' Yamamoto goes to the Nationals. Right? No one's expecting that. That is juicy drama. I'm all about the juicy drama. Speaking of drama, we have the finalists for the awards this year. Thank you for the super chats, everyone. I appreciate those super chats. We got the finalists. Jimmy Productions with another super chat. I'll get to that in just a second, Jimmy. But we have our finalists, everyone. No surprise for MVP. Ronald Acuna Jr., Mookie Betts, Freddie Freeman. Not surprised about that. I do think Ronald Acuna Jr. ends up taking the award. For the American League, Shohei Ohtani, Corey Seager, and Marcus Semien. And if we go take a look here, when it comes to the American League, I think that's, Marcus Semien was really good last year. Obviously, Corey Seager, he was hurt a lot, but Corey Seager was so good in the time that he played. And then Shohei Ohtani was obviously amazing. I could have maybe seen, I don't think Bobby Witt Jr. was quite there, but I could see, maybe some Royals fans out there maybe saying, Bobby Witt Jr., he was so good this year. Why not him? Right? Julio Rodriguez, I could see people say he had a really strong second half. He ended up having a good season. He was really slow in the beginning, right? I could maybe see people saying J-Rod should be a finalist, but I think these three guys were the right three guys, right? I think Shohei Ohtani ends up winning the award personally. Seager was awesome in the time that he played. It's too bad he got hurt. National League Cy Young. This is interesting, right? To me, I feel like Justin Steele got really robbed here. I'm fine. Obviously, I think Blake Snell ends up taking the award personally. If you're looking at the pitching leaderboards on Fangraphs, right, you got, honestly, I'm kind of even surprised. Well, again, this is Fangraphs. They do use more projected numbers. Zach Wheeler had the highest Fangraph WAR, right? But Wheeler was good last year. But I can understand why he's not a finalist. Zach Gallen, I could see people saying, why is Zach Gallen a finalist? But I think it's fine. To me personally, I don't know. Justin Steele, I think, should be a finalist. I think you could either go with Gallen or Logan Webb, right? Gallen had more strikeouts than Logan Webb this year, right? Right around the same innings. Webb did have a slightly better ERA. So I think Gallen with the strikeouts, I think that puts him over the edge a little bit. They weren't too far off when it came to ERA. So I'm fine with Gallen being there, but I feel like Steele got really robbed. The difference with Justin Steele compared to Webb, Gallen, is he didn't have the innings that they did. He had 173 in a third innings. So, that to me, I think that's what kept him off. But when you look at the main numbers that the voters look at, right, he had 16 wins. That was more than Logan Webb. I'm not a wins guy personally. Yes, it does look good. But, Steele had a much better record than Logan Webb, had the better ERA, had more strikeouts. He had a little bit more walks, but he kept the home runs down per 9. I don't know. I just feel like Steele should have been the guy, but I can understand Webb with the innings, so he definitely wins there. He had about, 40 more innings than him. So I get that. But I don't know, man. I just think Steele got robbed a little bit. I don't know. That's just me. I think Snell wins the award. American League, yeah, I think this is fine. Cole, Gosman, Gray. I think Cole wins it. Rookie of the Year, Corbin Carroll easily is winning this award. You're going to have Mets fans out there say it should be Senga. Mets fans, stop it. It's Corbin Carroll. Stop. I know Kadai Senga had a great year, but stop it. Corbin Carroll clearly is the Rookie of the Year. Like, it's not even a debate. Enough. If they had a Rookie of the Year, like, Cy Young, right? Picturing Rookie of the Year. Yeah, Senga gets that. American League. Hey, we got some good news for my Red Sox. Triston Casas is a finalist. I love it. Triston Casas. This dude's going to hit like 80 home runs next year. Triston Casas is the way. Triston Casas, MVP next year. Please? Can that happen? I love Triston Casas. Tanner Bibby. Gunnar Henderson. It's going to be Gunnar Henderson. And then, funny enough, with Craig Counsell being announced as Manager of the Year candidate. Out of these guys, I honestly feel like Counsell probably wins it. I could see Shoemaker winning it, right? Sure, Snicker. I think they all have a case, personally. American League, Bruce Bochy's winning it. Don't care what anyone says. Bruce Bochy's winning it. Well, no, hold on. I backtrack. Sorry. I slipped on the guy that I share the last name with. Never mind. I take back what I said. See, this is recency bias that was taking over right there. Bruce Bochy winning the World Series. But no, it's regular season. It's Brandon Hyde. Sorry. Brandon Hyde is winning the award. It's clear as night and day. Over 100 wins for the Orioles. This guy's been incredible. He's winning the award. Now, if you counted the playoffs, I think you got to say Bruce Bochy, but you don't count the playoffs. So, wow, I got ahead of myself right there. That's how much I like Bruce Bochy right now. Anyway, Brandon Hyde, he wins Manager of the Year. Here we go. That's it. And we also had a couple of other stories here today. We did have guys getting qualifying offers, and we also had some that did not get qualifying offers. JD Martinez, Teoscar Hernandez. People were wondering if Teoscar Hernandez was going to get a qualifying offer. I'm not surprised he wasn't offered one, personally. Because, yeah, sure, home runs, RBIs, but batting average, it was all right. On base, slugging, So I can understand the Mariners not giving him a qualifying offer. Maybe they could work out a new deal. But I wonder if a team overpays for him. I don't know, though. I wonder what the market's going to be like for Teoscar. Rhys Hoskins, this dude, honestly, I think Rhys Hoskins goes to the Brewers. I'd say the Brewers or the Pirates for Rhys Hoskins, honestly. So no qualifying offer for him. Michael Wacha did opt out of his deal. And then we talked earlier, Charlie Morton, club option exercise, so he will be back with the Braves. Unless they trade him. I don't think they do that. But Adam Ottavino declining his player option. That was an interesting one. I figured he would probably exercise it. But these 7 players receiving qualifying offers, no surprise. Ohtani, Bellinger, Chapman, Gray, Hader, Nola, Snell. Yeah, of course these guys are going to get qualifying offers. It's very likely they end up going elsewhere. So, the one thing with Ohtani and the Angels, hey, at least the Angels, if they do lose them, they'll get a draft pick out of it. So, I guess there is a bright side, I guess. I don't know. But I'm just trying to stay positive for the Angels fans out there. We had a couple more Super Chats coming in. Jimmy Productions, $1.99. I would go after Nola because they took Harper. Couldn't Nola be maybe a possible fit for the Nationals if they were to just be like they're sitting down in the office, right? They're all having some coffee, maybe some scones. They're all sitting there, they're chatting, they're laughing about something that happened the day before, and one of them just says, guys, what do you think about Aaron Nola? What do you think? I don't know, man. That seems a little too soon. Come on, we'll sign him to a 7-year deal. He'll be our guy. For the next, maybe we don't win next year, but he's that guy that we can build around. Hey, you're making a pretty good argument, man. Oh, all right. We could maybe put a feeler in for Aaron Nola. Well, we'll call his agent. We'll see what's going on. Hey, this is the amount we're looking for. Hey, according to the accounting department, hey, we might have a few bucks. Let's throw an offer out there for Nola. Maybe it sticks. Maybe Nola says, oh, the Nationals, they got a lot of young talent coming up. I wouldn't mind maybe spending the rest of my career there. That's a fun organization. Listen, I don't think the Nationals end up doing anything, but I could see it. I sound crazy, but listen, things can happen. Jimmy Productions, $1.99. Shohei Ohtani to the Giants, Snell or Burns to the Dodgers. Now, the Dodgers, that's interesting because the Dodgers, look out for them in the trade market. All right, they have a lot of prospects. They have just the ultimate weapon. They got prospects, right? They could go make a deal for Burns, right? They could go make a deal for Shane Bieber. They could make these deals, right? So I think that's possible. Ohtani, listen, I'm not counting the Giants out for Ohtani, Jimmy. I'm not. The Giants have been trying to land someone for years. If there is ever a guy, I mean, goodness, maybe it was a good thing they missed out on Judge. Maybe it was a good thing they missed out on Correa. Maybe it's a blessing in disguise. They end up getting Shohei Ohtani. Freaking Shohei Ohtani. Could you imagine? I mean, come on. What a consolation prize that would be after losing out on Judge and then backing out of the Correa deal. That could end, who knows? That could be a blessing in disguise. We'll have to see. Conman752, how you doing, my friend? Gonna die on this hill. Bradish should have been a finalist over Gausman. Bradish has the better WAR record, ERA, WHIP, ERA plus, lower hits per 9, lower walks per 9. Ooh. I will say, Conman, you've had some good hot takes. You've had some good ones. Very good ones. I like this. Let's dive into this a little bit. Bradish, right? When it comes to Fangraph WAR, he is 16th overall. I think the thing that holds Bradish back, he has less innings. He also, it's that name, right? Gausman is that name, and Bradish, he was really good in the second half. So I see the argument for it. He does have the better ERA. Gausman had better strikeouts. That is one thing to think about, right? They're pretty similar when it came to walks per 9 and home runs per 9, right? I see the argument. I could, I think with Gausman, though, I think there's a bit of a name factor to it. But I think you make a compelling argument, Conman. I'm just saying. Jimmy Productions, $1.99. I see Nola to the Red Sox. Japanese starting pitcher, you had number 2. Oh, in my predictions, Yamamoto, overrated. I'm interested to see how Yamamoto does. The dude's stuff is electric. It's so good. This guy won the Cy Young Award in Japan. What was the award called over in Japan? Their version of the Cy Young. I'm going so blank on the name of the award. But he won it 3 times. I mean, come on. Not even Daisuke did that. Not even Yu Darvish did that. Not even Tanaka did that. Yamamoto is going to be really good. Going to be really good. The Samura Award, right? Thank you, Diego. Thank you. I listen. I think Yamamoto, man, I think he's really good. I would not mind Nola with the Red Sox. He gives you innings, right? He's that stability piece that I think the Red Sox could use, right? I would not be unhappy with Nola at all. Jimmy, you're going crazy with the Super Chats tonight. Thank you, Jimmy. Could we see Giolito return to the Nationals? Why not? They need pitching. I could see it. I think it's possible, right? Absolutely. I think Giolito should go somewhere where they're very, very heavy on the pitching analytics, right? Matt Blake with the Yankees, I think, makes sense. The Dodgers are very heavy with the pitching analytics. Somewhere like the Rays, I could see that. I think Giolito needs to go to an environment like that where they can kind of use the data, use the numbers to kind of fix him up a little bit, right? I feel like Giolito just seems lost right now. I feel like he just needs that support, right? So anyway, everyone, before I do get out of here, I do want to go over today's sponsor, and that is Underdog Fantasy. Underdog Fantasy is a proud sponsor of the channel. I have just loved every second of their support. So, Underdog Fantasy, thank you so much. The link is in the description down below. Use the code HIDE. You get a double on your first deposit. Listen, everyone, I know. Baseball season's over. We can't make the pick'ems. We can't do the drafts for baseball, but it is football season. It is basketball season. And, if we go look at some of the pick'ems for right now, listen, hey, basketball, I think, is pretty fun to make pick'ems for, right? I would say, obviously with football, it's once a week. But give basketball a shot too. I think there's some fun ones that you can do. But right now, and actually, what you can do with Underdog Fantasy is you can make picks during games, which I think is pretty cool. So Justin Herbert and the Chargers are winning right now against the poor Jets, 17-6. The Jets are just cursed, man. The Jets are cursed. But Justin Herbert, right? You could do a couple of different picks for him. Austin Eckler, right? So that is something to pay attention to, especially with football. You can do in-game pick'ems. So when it comes to football this coming week, keep your eyes on that. I actually won myself a few bucks with a couple of football picks. And I don't even know all that much about football. I'm just saying, I'm not the most savvy. I got to go watch some videos, some fantasy videos to kind of help me out with it. But again, I know it's not baseball season. Obviously, that was what I promoted a lot when it came to Underdog. But go try out football. Go try out basketball as well. You do have James Harden now as a Clipper. I'm guessing the Clippers are probably not going to win because they have a super team, and the super teams don't ever win. Is that even a thing anymore? I feel like that's not even a thing anymore. But, hey, go check it out. They got a whole bunch of different categories that you can pick from when it comes to the basketball stats. So, again, I know it's weird talking football and basketball, but just saying. Go try and win yourself a couple of bucks. Make sure, though, you play responsibly. That is the biggest thing. Listen, when you get into that mode where you're winning a couple of bucks, it could get a little, you're like, oh man, I won a couple bucks. I'm going to try and win another couple bucks, right? Please play responsibly. That is the biggest thing. So I'm out of here, everyone. I'm going to start wrapping this up here, going over the news tonight. Not the juiciest of news, but it was a fun day of news. Craig Counsell going to the Cubs. Right, the Mets getting their new manager. Got a couple of rumors with Juan, Soto, Alonso. Even had something on Justin Turner a little bit. But everyone, thank you so much. If you did not see my free agent predictions video, go check it out. They're going to be all wrong, so go check it out. And everyone, if you can, on the way out, hit that like button for me. That's going to help this out with the algorithm after this is published. And hit the bell notification as well. Share the show if you can. And share any of the other content as well. And I will be having content coming out this week. I'm going to try and have something maybe for Wednesday. And then I have something for this weekend as well. So, everyone, thank you so much. Jim, if you're still here, thank you for stopping by. Everyone, go check out what Jim has over on his channel as well. Hey, me and him, we're pumping out similar content. And, hey, we're just having fun with this offseason. So, thank you to all the moderators. Thank you to all the members stopping by. And thank you for all the super chats. Jimmy Productions, you're amazing with your support, my friend. Thank you so much for that. And Conman, thank you for your super chat. And everyone else that dropped a super chat, thank you so much. Everyone, have yourself a great night. And I'll talk to you next time.